Hi, you are about to engage in the guidebook unit, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The purpose of this video is to help you become familiar with the historical setting of the novel, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, so you will better understand the actions and feelings of the characters. Be sure you have your handout and something to write with.
You won't actually have this. You will have your packet or online study guide, online field journal to be able to write this information down.
For the video. Here are the first three sentences of the novel The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They contain a mystery we need to solve. Follow along while I read. Once there were 4 children whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. This story is about something that happened to them when they were sent away from London during the war because of the air raids. They were sent to the house of an old professor who lived in the heart of the country, 10 miles from the nearest railway station and 2 miles from the nearest post office. They were sent away from London during the war because of the air raids? What is an air raid? When did this happen? Why were the children sent away exactly? We will solve these mysteries during this video. Let's start by watching the beginning of a video of the story told in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The video will contain some clues to help answer the question, why were the children sent away? So as you watch the video, be listening for those clues. When this video ends, please click the right arrow. Press play to watch the video. Then click the right arrow again and press play to continue.
Why do we have to go? I'd much rather stay in London and see the war.
This war is going to be very nasty, Edmund, which is why we're all being sent away.
Spoil sports, grown-ups. They are doing it for our sake, Edmund. When the bombs start falling on London, I wish Mother and Nanny could have come with us. I don't think it's fair. They'll be right there, in all the excitement.
What's that danger you mean? Don't talk such tosh.
We are lucky, Edmund. We are going away deep into the countryside where we'll be safe. Yes, and you know why we'll be safe? Because in the country, nothing ever happens.
You can pause the video if you need to answer. All right, it asks why they were sent away. We'll discuss this in class if you're not with us.
So now you are ready to answer that question about what you learned in the film. Pause this video to record your answers on your handout at stop sign number 2. Then hit play when you are ready to continue. From the video clip, we learned that the children were being sent away from London because there was a war and bombs were falling on the city. The year was 1940. Next, we'll learn a bit more about what was happening during that time. Where is London anyway? Well, London is the capital of England, which is a country in Europe. What was happening in London in 1940? The text says there were air raids. An air raid is when bombs are dropped from an airplane, like this one. This photograph shows an actual German airplane dropping bombs on London during World War II. Let's learn a bit about this war so we can fully understand what is happening in the story. What do we mean when we say World War II? We call it a world war because many countries around the world were involved. World War II lasted for 6 years from 1939 to 1945. Most of the fighting took place in Europe, but there were also battles in East Asia, North America, and a bombing of Pearl Harbor in the United States. The main countries involved were Germany, Japan, and Italy on one side, called the Axis powers. The other side, known as the Allied powers, was made up of England, France, Russia, the United States, China, and many smaller countries in Europe. Here's a timeline of a few of the major events of the European conflict during World War II. The war began when Germany invaded Poland in 1939. In 1940, Germany invaded Norway, Denmark, Belgium, and the Netherlands. It also began dropping bombs in England. In 1942, Italy switched sides in the war and began to help the Allies fight against Germany. In 1944, many Allied soldiers landed in France and began fighting back. After 6 years of war, Germany finally surrendered to the Allies in 1945. The story we read in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe takes place in 1940 as Germany is bombing the city centers of England. You have just learned something new about the bombs the children were escaping. Which country was bombing London in 1940? Pause this video to record your answers on your handout at stop sign number 3. Then hit play when you are ready to continue. Germany was bombing London in 1940. Germany carried out heavy air raids over England in 1940 and 1941 during the Second World War. During those years, more than 1 million London houses were destroyed or damaged. More than 40,000 British civilians were killed, almost half of them in the capital. Here are 2 photographs that show damage left behind by bombs that fell on London. It looks like these children may have lost their homes, but perhaps their parents did not survive. They're lucky to be alive. During the bombing raids, people would hide under the ground in bomb shelters and wait for several hours until the bombing stopped to come out. These pictures were taken in one of London's subway stations, where people would go for shelter if they couldn't find a proper bomb shelter. Subways run underground, so it was a good place to go to wait for the bombing to stop. Children were evacuated from cities across England. Much of the bombing was of London, but some other British cities were hit as well. If parents had relatives who lived in the countryside, they sent their children to go live with them until the danger had passed. The British government organized to send millions of children out of the cities by train. They were then placed with volunteer families or in special group homes in the country. Some children enjoyed life in the country. Others endured a miserable time away from home. Many children from inner city areas had never seen farm animals before or eaten many vegetables. After being away from home for several months, when it was time to return home to their families, some children were confused and didn't recognize their parents. Write a sentence that describes what is happening to these children. Pause this video to record your answers on your handout at stop sign number 4. Then hit play when you are ready to continue.
You guys will either have it on a Google slide or on your field journal.
Your sentence should say something like, these children are being sent away from the city to the country by their parents to keep them safe from the bombs. Let's take a closer look at the last sentence from our passage. They were sent to the house of an old professor who lived
Think about it, an old professor who lives in the countryside.
in the heart of the country 10 miles from the nearest railway station, and 2 miles from the nearest post office. Now we have a better understanding of why the characters in the novel, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, found themselves living in the country home of an old professor they had never met before. Now you understand what was happening in history during World War II, specifically in London. Understanding the setting helps you better understand the characters you will read about in the guidebook unit, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. When you finish this video, be sure to turn in your completed handout to your teacher.
Okay, we're going to do another video that tackles British slang and terminology before we begin our reading.
Hi, you are about to engage in the guidebook unit, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The purpose of this video is to learn some of the words and phrases that people use who live in England, which is the setting for the novel The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the excerpts from Alice in Wonderland and the Secret Garden stories. Be sure you have your handout and something to write with for the video. I will read part of a made-up story. As you read along, ask yourself, do I know what all these words mean? The gentleman chose his finest waistcoat from his wardrobe. After his daily porridge and orange marmalade, he washed the saucers and watched his daughter, Clara, practice her curtsies. Next, he got the sledge ready. He knew Clara would rather be playing on the grounds, making daisy chains and enjoying Turkish delight. But that would have to wait, because today they would visit the Queen. Perhaps a few of these words are unfamiliar, since many of them are used only in England. Let's learn the meanings of a few of the words we will encounter in your readings. England is a country located in Europe. England is part of a collection of countries known as the United Kingdom, which also includes Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. The red area on the map is England, and it is the largest. That's where the city of London is, which is the country's capital. All the people who live in the United Kingdom, often called the UK for short, speak English just like we do in the United States, but sometimes they use different words than we do. When you go to the United Kingdom, you may tour the countryside, where you will find very large homes that look like this one. Often called manor houses, they will be made of bricks or stone, and they will be set on a large plot of land. The plot of land is called the grounds, which contain beautiful tended gardens like this one. This is the style of house that the children in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe are sent to live. In the novel, we will read about a piece of furniture found in every large manor house called a wardrobe. In many homes, especially old ones, there were no closets like we see today. Instead, people kept their clothes in large pieces of wooden furniture that looked like this one in the photograph.
That was actually true in America in this time period too, because whenever you had a closet, they taxed by room. So a closet counted as a room, quote unquote. So they would tax you and your house and your property tax based on that. So people didn't have closets because they were too expensive. So they would have wardrobes instead.
When clothing made out of wool is put away in closets or wardrobes for long periods of time, it is in danger of moths eating the wool fibers, creating holes like you can see in this photograph. In order to keep the moths away, people sometimes place small balls about the size of a quarter called mothballs in their closets and wardrobes. The mothballs contain poison which kills the moths. Some of the words used for clothing are different than we are used to. One article of clothing worn by men under their jackets is called a waistcoat. We might call this piece of clothing a vest. A waistcoat has small pockets in the front of it that a man often used to hold his pocket watch. In one of the unit texts, we will read about a character that is a rabbit who has a pocket watch that he keeps in his waistcoat pocket. So now you are ready to answer a couple of questions about what you have just learned. Pause the video and follow the directions on the slide. Press play when you are ready to continue. This piece of furniture is called a wardrobe. Inside a wardrobe, you might find a piece of clothing called a waistcoat. You might also find some mothballs. There are two words used for food that you may not be familiar with. One word used for hot cereal that people might eat for breakfast is the word porridge. Any sort of hot cereal, oatmeal is one type, can be called porridge. Another type of food you may be unfamiliar with is called marmalade, which is a type of jam made out of citrus fruit like oranges. You spread it on bread or toast. One piece of furniture you will find in large country homes in England is a cupboard. It is often found in the kitchen or dining room and is typically used to store food or dishes.
That's the same reason they don't have actual pantries is because of the taxation.
A cupboard is where you might find a cup and saucer, the small plate that sits underneath the cup, and you would use it for hot drinks like coffee or tea. One very interesting food item you will read about in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is Turkish Delight. Turkish Delight is a type of candy
We'll be trying this at our Christmas party.
that is made of colorful jelly of different flavors that is cut and then rolled in either powdered sugar or finely ground coconut. It is called Turkish Delight because it was originally made in the country of Turkey, but is a very popular treat sold all over England. We will read about how characters get around using a sledge, which we most often call a sleigh. A sledge is only used in the winter to travel over snow and is pulled by horses. When you ride in the sledge, you are open to the weather, so you might want to cover yourself in coats or blankets. There are a couple of traditional activities we will find mentioned in the readings. One is the curtsy. When a woman greets someone of a very senior position, like a president or a queen of a country, she bends her knees and lowers her head to show respect, much like a man would do when he bows. The act itself is called a curtsy, a noun, but the word is also used as a verb. In this photograph, a young girl is curtsying as she hands flowers to Queen Elizabeth. Another tradition you will read about is creating a daisy chain from small, wild flowers that look like daisies. To make a daisy chain, you tie the stems of the flowers together to form jewelry that you wear around your wrist or neck. Have you ever made a daisy chain? Children in England skip rope using what they call a skipping rope. In the United States, we generally call it a jump rope, but it is exactly the same thing. Have you ever used a skipping rope? So now you are ready to answer another question about what you have just learned. Pause the video and follow the directions on the slide. Press play when you are ready to continue. You should have circled the words orange marmalade, porridge, and Turkish delight on your handout. Now you know all the words in this short made-up story. The gentleman chose his finest waistcoat from his wardrobe. After his daily porridge and orange marmalade, he washed the saucers and watched his daughter, Clara, practice her curtsies. Next, he got the sledge ready. He knew Clara would rather be playing on the grounds, making daisy chains and enjoying Turkish delight, but that would have to wait because today they would visit the Queen. Knowing some of the words people who live in England use to refer to things will make it easier for you to picture and to understand the lives of the characters you will encounter during the guidebook unit, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Don't forget to turn in your completed handout to your teacher.